What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Kynseed. Now let's rip right into it. So Kynseed is a life simulator, romance simulator, farming simulator, business simulator. It's trying to do a lot of things at once, but we'll get right into all of them. Now, you start off Kynseed as a child. You are an orphan with your sister, and you get adopted by your uncle. Well, not really your uncle, but a guy who says he's your uncle, and you get adopted, and you get put into this mythical new place. So the beginning's a prologue, and guys, I gotta tell you right off the bat, this was the longest prologue I've played in my entire fucking life. It was 4 hours. Now, if you're familiar with games like this, it's going to drag on because you kind of already have an idea of how things work and what to do and what you want to do and so forth. But if you're new to it, it's really going to hold your hand and you're going to really get a taste of everything to do. Now, you really have to bear through the prologue because the game doesn't even remotely start until you become an adult. Then you have all the freedom and the other half of the map opens up and it becomes an entirely new game. So, long prologue, but you got to get it over with. So one of the core mechanics that really separates this game from a lot of other games is the fact that it has a system of generations, meaning that you live on through your children, your dynasty. Now, the way this works, I don't want to spoil for you guys, but the story is extremely original. It's very interesting. I liked it a lot. Very surprising, new, fresh concept, cool stuff. So let's get into a couple things you can do. Off the bat with any life sim, there's fishing, farming, having friends. But I got to tell you guys, each individual activity is really fleshed out. And it's honestly, if you were to look over your friend's shoulder while playing this game and you were to look over another friend's shoulder, you honestly would maybe think they're playing two different games depending on what they're doing. I say this because let's take smithing, for instance. If you want to be a smith, first you have to go out in the mines, you have to find your ore, you come back to the blacksmith shop, which you can either have bought or you can rent the anvil from somebody who already owns one, and you make your stuff. And the thing I really like about this game is every single activity, be it being a apothecary, mining, smithing, fighting, cooking, they all have these really cool interactive mini games, and depending on how you do in those mini games depends on the quality that you get afterwards, so it takes into consideration how you did during the mini games plus how good the ingredients are that you first started with. And the great part about this game, as I alluded to earlier, was that none of the things that you can do are cheesy. Some life sims have fishing or farming or whatever, and it's almost like an afterthought, and the mini games are shit, and you're kind of like it just doesn't really work, and it's kind of like they tacked it on just to say they had this other feature. But no, every single thing is good enough that, like, if you were just to focus on smithing, for instance, or just focus on farming, that could be a game in itself. But now we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different directions we can go to, so it keeps things fresh. You don't always have to be farming. You can be out fighting, and it has a whole other fighting scenario. You go into these, they're not like dungeons, but they can be dungeons, forests, etc., etc. You have to take into consideration the equipment you're going to go in with. So now we incorporate the potion making in the game. We incorporate the blacksmithing because you were the one who actually made that sword, and now you're utilizing that sword to go fight monsters. So it's got this great feedback system where it ties everything together, and depending on how you're doing in other aspects, it can benefit you in other things that you're doing. Furthermore, then it takes everything into consideration that you did in that particular character's life, and now it then affects your next generation. So everything you do or don't do, it's all tied in perfectly in a sweet little Kynseed package. It's incredibly done. Well done, boys. Going into some other things. So every NPC has its own unique story, and I guess just like Fable, you can treat them like shit or you can treat them well. They have 3 bars going to the left for treating them bad, 3 hearts going to the right to treat them good. And like I said, they have their own individual stories. And the game claims that you can marry any NPC, guy, girl, if you're a guy, girl, whatever. Fairy, attack, helicopter, penguin. So depending, no matter what you are, you can marry any NPC. Now, for me, I thought, fuck, like there's a huge cast of characters. Typically when a game's like this, like let's take Fable for instance, it's like you can marry any girl, but every girl is kind of like a copy pasted. They only have like 3 lines of dialogue. So it's like, okay, cool, but are they even really unique? Like, is it even really like real life? This game does that, but they're unique. So much so that they have their own unique traits. They have their own unique skills, just like you do, your strength, your charisma, your this and that. So that's something you have to take into account when you want to marry somebody. Obviously, you want to marry someone with good stats because you want to pass on good genes to your kids, right? You don't want to be marrying some fucking Sanchez because you want to be the best. Now we're just going to keep banging out these features. So another feature is you can own a business. So there's a couple businesses to choose from. Once again, blacksmithing, potion making, a couple other things, even just owning a general store. So that's another avenue you can go into. So you can own a store. Then you can have a family. Then you can fight. This is one of the only games that I can say is a true life sim because you can really do a lot of things that life, you know? Let's make the comparison because it's gonna happen. Everyone's gonna say, and every review says, it's kind of like Stardew Valley. Okay, well, Stardew Valley is kind of like Harvest Moon, the OG, you know what I mean? So let's not even make that comparison. But if you want to make the comparison, Stardew Valley is focused on farming and taking care of animals significantly. The characters are not as fleshed out as they are here. And the combat and mining on Stardew Valley is shit, okay? And just flat out, I don't like it. I mean, you're this character and like your sword comes in front of you like 6 feet. It's very arcadey and very, it's shit. This is a much better combat system. Once again, I'm not going to ruin it for you guys, but I like it a lot. Every single system in place is good. None of them are bad. If you don't like something and something's not your thing, if you don't like to cook, you don't have to. It's a life sim. You get to choose what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. Now, a couple of the more boring things that we got to cover. Graphics, guys, you can see it yourself. Looks amazing. It's got a cool style on its own. Artwork's great. The map is huge, but not only the map is huge, but something that I got to address because you guys have this boner for fucking massive maps, okay? Massive maps and open worlds are shit unless there's unique environments and there's plenty to do in each environment, because there's a fine line between an open world and a fucking walking simulator. A perfect example, Dragon Age Inquisition. That didn't need to be an open world game. It's fucking horrible and it ruined the fucking game for me. Excuse me, my apologies. One more thing about the game that is completely out of left field, and you wouldn't realize it by looking at it. Guys, this is one of the scariest, most disturbing games I've ever played in my life. I'm not going to say why. It's a big surprise. You guys can figure it on yourself. But this game is fucking scary. And you would never think it is. But I'm telling you guys, don't play this at 3 in the fucking morning. You're not going to be able to sleep. It is fucking terrifying. The game deals with a lot of occult devil worshipping kind of stuff. Play the game, you'll know what I mean. And this motherfucking rabbit in this game is the fucking creepiest motherfucker I've ever seen in a game. At one particular point on a rainy day, he wants you to meet him outside of your house at midnight. He's fucking terrifying. Just look at him. I don't know, he's just creepy as fuck. There's something weird about him. I don't know. I've never been afraid of rabbit people until I met this fucking weirdo. Anyways, let's wrap it up because this video is getting a little long. Guys, my rating, 10 out of 10 Lifesim. Pick it up. It's cheap. It's good. You won't regret it. Congratulations. Good life simulator strategy game.